Batman, vigilante, myth, man. For 85 years, the Caped Crusader has haunted the alleyways of Gotham in the pages of comics, in live action, animation, and video games alike. His story is one of vengeance, fear, urban mysticism, and most importantly, heroism and redemption, with endless reinventions throughout his history. Some tales and adaptations have painted him as a nocturnal creature of darkness, a superstition for those who dare to pursue a life of crime, a larger-than-life figure of gothic fantasy, while other versions sought to strip him bare, to show what the Dark Knight would look like in our real modern world. But the most memorable visions and takes on Batman and his mythos, the ones that stood the test of time and adapted his legend in full, are the ones that walked the line between man and myth, vengeance and night. The true Batman we all know and love from the comics shouldn't be defined as one or the other. The Batman is equal parts both, a detective in cold moonlight, trying to solve mysteries and fight crime, as well as a legend that lurks in the shadows and haunts crooks and supervillains alike on rooftops and in the dark corners of Gotham City. And now, as James Gunn's new DC Studios and universe begins to take shape, with the world being introduced to a new, inexperienced, yet hopeful Superman in his third year, there's a mystery that looms large. Who exactly will this universe's new Batman be? A strange face in a new mask? Someone made specifically to fit this whole new larger world of the Justice League? Or will Robert Pattinson be the legend of the DCU? Should it even be Pattinson? As a longtime Batman fan and as a storyteller, here is my take. First, we need to ask ourselves the big question: what truly defines Batman? For years, two specific words have been thrown around to categorize the Dark Knight: grounded and fantastical. Some say that he has to be one or the other, that he has to be defined as a simple vigilante, bound by the rules and logic of the real world, or as this mythical figure standing face to face with superhumans, gods, and monsters. But the truth is, Batman's always been both, and neither. What he does, what he represents, just can't exist in our real world. But at the same time, he's nothing but a regular human, just like the rest of us. A human who's forced to face off against metahumans and supervillains with nothing but high-tech gadgets, his genius-level intellect, and most importantly, his absolute sheer willpower.
I never give up.
This whole contrast and duality of an ordinary man going against the mythical and the unknown, that's what defines the Caped Crusader. Batman the Animated Series, the Arkham game series, the Batman even, they all acknowledge this in full. All these takes on the Dark Knight acknowledge the duality of his world being that of a noir, concrete jungle of mystery and crime, but also one that houses monsters and unexplainable people and creatures beneath the surface. Because Gotham is as much of a character with identity and nuance as Batman himself. And this is why I think the DCU doesn't need a new retelling of Batman to accommodate its world building and stories, as Pattinson's Batman could be the perfect way to go about it, should they ever choose to go into this route.
Thursday, October 31st.
The Batman. Arguably one of the best retellings of the Caped Crusader's story on the big screen, with a unique stylized spin on Batman's mythos, yet one that's instantly familiar to those who've walked the alleys of Gotham before and experienced the many stories of the Dark Knight. Matt Reeves' version took pretty obvious inspirations from very well-known stories and takes like Batman Noel, Year One, Mask of the Phantasm, and especially The Long Halloween. Robert Pattinson in this movie not only embodies a grim and gritty noir detective Batman who's in year 2 of his career, but also essentially gives us a Bruce Wayne who still has so much to learn. An inexperienced detective, young and scarred by grief and fear, with his vengeance being the main thing that drives him. But throughout his story, he learns to turn all that pain into something more, with his growth already underway, growing from a place of vengeance and fear into more of a symbol of hope. This makes it even more perfect to imagine this Batman stepping into a larger world, a world of mystery, of wonder, of the unexplained. Because honestly, the DCU needs a Batman who hasn't reached the heights of his legend to grow alongside Superman and the rest of the Justice League. As for this movie's take on Gotham, this is a very stylized, mystified, and gothic city, with crime festering and urban legends already being created. Everything is so mythicized, it feels mythic enough to leave room for eventual fantastic threats in the future, yet human enough to remain emotionally and physically relatable. The thugs and crooks see Batman as the boogeyman, a literal incarnation of darkness itself. The main villain being a larger-than-life Riddler, with riddles and schemes across the entire city, people caught in death traps, and an entire cult to back him up, and a criminal underground that runs so deep, the entire system is essentially involved. Even the way Arkham Asylum and its inmates are revealed in this universe, it feels very unnatural, like it stores some of the weirdest and the most unsavory kinds of individuals. Even the concept art itself, and the whole vision Matt Reeves and the whole art department had for the universe. The Arkham games were such a clear-cut inspiration, with a kind of Gotham that feels like the perfect blend of exaggerated, stylized mysticism and relatable realism. This doesn't feel like just any gritty or grounded Batman. This is more of a Gotham where you could see Batman solving murders in the rain one night, and then fighting a creature like Man-Bat, or a sadistic mad scientist like Hugo Strange in the next. Reeves and the concept team already created this perfect layout to tell those kinds of stories. Stories that naturally escalate from the noir mystery of the Batman into the more fantastical legend of the Justice League. And with clear inspirations like the Arkhamverse and even the animated series in many aspects, I wouldn't necessarily call this take on Batman and his mythos grounded. And even with this take on Gotham not being fully fantastical right now, an eventual progression and the contrast between this and Superman's bright and campy metropolis is what makes this whole dynamic between Batman and Superman so compelling. Right now, it's a Gotham without any fantastical threats or metahumans of any kind, but truth is, every Batman story started out like this, especially Year 1 and Year 2 Batman. Batman the Animated Series is a perfect example for this. At the start of his crime-fighting career, Batman faces off against regular criminals, like crooks and mob bosses, before eventually going up against the more fantastical threats. Eventually, when actual supervillains like Man-Bat, Poison Ivy, Clayface, or Mr. Freeze step into the picture, it shakes Batman to the core. Even in the comics, Batman learning about a larger world of metahumans, gods, and monsters completely shakes him. It unsettles him. It's a huge insecurity that he has to get over, and it's not only one of the most important things about Batman, it's the main reason why his infamous prep time exists. That crippling fear that he's so out of his depth and so outmatched that he has to physically and mentally prepare for every threat that he goes against. every foe that comes his way. And with this kind of take on Batman himself, this is the prime opportunity to show that struggle at its fullest, with a version of the character who wouldn't be accustomed to the fantastical at first, but when that element reveals itself, it hits him like a truck. And obvious points aside, like Pattinson's already a well-developed Batman with a mythos that's already universally beloved, and having two Batmans on the big screen at the same time would be unnecessary and confusing. Having a proper retelling of Batman's whole journey, and seeing him go through every step of the way, without having to adapt to a new, different Batman, or skipping any of his essential stories, to then seeing him growing to his more mythical, grander self. That's how Batman should be. Besides, seeing this Batman interact with the hopeful and idealistically naive Superman of David Corn Sweat would be nothing short of incredible, with the two contrasting yet complementing each other, as in something akin to Superman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited. As for the progression itself, how could this Batman evolve into the more fantastical, mythical, urban legend version of himself, if he ever were to step into that direction? That's another mystery we're yet to solve. As of this recording, The Batman Part 2 is slated for October 1st, 2027, with a story that's shrouded in much mystery and intrigue. Supposedly delving deeper into the corruption of Gotham, Batman and his role in this story is still unknown as of right now, with Matt Reeves' script only recently having been finished. After the events of The Batman Part 1 and The Penguin, with Gotham City being flooded and under martial law, there's so many different directions you can take moving forward. Let's explore a more mythical way to continue the story. This would be purely a what-if scenario, if you will. While Gotham would have that same surrealistic, urban, gothic feel from Part 1, the tone here could be turned into something even more gothic, urban, and mythicized, much like the concept art for Part 1. Even Batman himself could eventually get a new suit that feels more evolved and more like a classic design, while keeping the overall aesthetic of the first suit. Something similar to the post-Arkham City suit from Arkham Knight would probably be ideal. As for the story itself, Batman would be thrust into a scenario where the city is thrown into absolute chaos, with the most insidious kinds of forces taking control over Gotham and its people, with the whole city and its institutions being destabilized. A few people could try to control that chaos. One of them could be none other than the mad scientist and lead psychiatrist of Arkham Asylum himself, Dr. Hugo Strange. Akin to stories like No Man's Land or Arkham City, someone like Hugo Strange getting into a position of power could spawn some new mysteries that not even Batman would be aware of. In the deepest and darkest corners of Gotham, Hugo Strange would find out about a select number of unsavory people who were hidden deep within the city, to be experimented on and used for quote-unquote research at Arkham Asylum's more underground operations. Batman would hear about these operations and head out to investigate. Once he finds his way into the deep underwings of Arkham, Batman would be thrown right into the heart of Hugo Strange's operations, coming face to face with the mad scientist himself. Here, Batman would be faced with his biggest shock he's had yet. The supposed unsavory individuals Hugo Strange was experimenting on used to be ordinary people who went through either tragic accidents or unforeseen mutations. People with unnatural powers and abilities, stuff that shouldn't exist. Strange would classify them as metahumans. As Batman keeps walking past their cells, he hears odd noises from each of them. Giant wings flapping and loud screeches with huge bangs coming from a cell. Plants and roots audibly growing over each other, with a woman's cries in another one. Then, a chilling glacier coldness coming from yet another. Batman becomes more and more shocked with every single one as he goes deeper and deeper into the asylum, searching for the mad scientist himself. This could be a story that shines light on an all-new and unique kind of side to the world building of the Batman. While part 1 was all about the theme of vengeance, the grounded and rough vigilante who eventually grows into something more, part 2 could represent the knight, the middle part of Batman's defining catchphrase. You could see this as not only Batman's most iconic line, but also a way to categorize the themes of his trilogy. Vengeance, the grounded beginnings of a vigilante who wants revenge against the criminal element that took his family from him. The knight, the embodiment of a mythical element, an evolution into something more outlandish, with an invitation into the nocturnal darkness that so often conceals plenty of its own mysticism beneath the surface. And then Batman, the moment when Bruce finally steps into the role of a protector, of a hero, a symbol of hope and kindness. This natural evolution is exactly why Pattinson's Batman would be perfect for something like the DCU. Instead of rebooting him and gunning for a new take on the character, we could watch his journey unfold and go through every single one of his stories from the comics and the other media, from an early Year 2 vigilante into a living urban legend, side by side with Superman's growth in Metropolis. Just imagine seeing Pattinson's Batman evolve from the arcs of a noir detective in his crime saga to the Caped Crusader we all know and love, fighting his rogues gallery as they conspire against him, to having his own Bat family develop alongside him as Bruce begins to open up more to others, to then eventually joining the Justice League as a paranoid and emotionally vulnerable part-timer who slowly warms up to the other members. It would feel earned, without skipping any of Batman's essential stories and adventures, or having two different versions of the character on the big screen simultaneously, while trying to cut away parts of lore from each just to differentiate them. And most importantly, it would make Batman feel just as important to the DCU as Superman himself. And here is where I leave it to you guys. What are your thoughts on the future of Batman in the DCU? Do you think Robert Pattinson should be the face of the Dark Knight, alongside David Cornsweet's Superman and the rest of the Justice League? Do you think the DCU and Matt Reeves' Gotham should stay separate? And if so, who would be your pick for DCU's new Batman? I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and agree with my own take on the whole DCU Batman topic, a like would be most appreciated. And if you enjoyed this type of content and want to see more videos explaining the lore of myths, fantasy, and all things fiction, subscribe to the Quill's Archives for more. And until next time, stay safe and dream big.